On July 10th, 2026, SQL Server 2016 goes out of extended support. That means it's deprecated. 10 years ago, this was the most ambitious database release Microsoft had ever shipped. So before we bury it, let's argue about it. Monica, give me one word.
Query store.
That's two. Denny.
FreshDB.
John.
I thought we were going to react to the product, but I would say temporal tables.
You guys got that wrong. But
Yeah.
It's a one-word reaction to the product, not a feature. We're going to talk about features later.
Game changer.
Let's do this one more time. Okay. On July 10th, 2026, Microsoft is going to end support for SQL Server 2016. 10 years ago, this was SQL Server 2016, Microsoft's most ambitious release of a database product. So before we bury it, let's argue about it. Give me one word, Monica.
Game changer.
Denny.
I'm going to steal the same word. Yeah, but it was game changing. That's all there is to it.
John?
Phenomenal.
Yeah, I got a deep relationship with this, and I'm also publishing a column in Redmond Mag this week to talk about end of life and some of the things we're going to talk about today. But we're going to talk about in this podcast, and I'm here with my MVP and DCAC colleagues, Denny Cherry, Monica Morehouse, and John Morehouse. SQL Server 2016, and what a game-changing feature it is. And whether you're watching this on the Azure Cloud Chronicles, which is John and I's channel, or DCAC, various forms of social media, we loved SQL 2016. We did a lot. I wrote the training kit for it for Microsoft. Denny and I wrote a book, which I actually have a copy of. I don't think they ever sold this, but it was
they didn't give it away. I've got a couple back there, so they're over here somewhere.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk about this. And first of all, I want to say, I think somebody's lying that 2016 was 10 years ago. Just kind of a comment. Because I do have fewer hairs and more of them are gray, but it doesn't seem like it was 10 years ago. And as I don't actually remember when it went GA. I know I took one of our customers live on it in 2015, August, but I don't remember where. I think it was like Pass or Ignite 2016. But Monica, I'm going to start with you on this question. Where were you professionally when 2016 was shipped, and what was the first feature you actually used in production?
Ooh, I was at the coffee company, Massimo Zanetti, right before I went to Denny Cherry for 2017. So what was the question?
What was the first feature of SQL 2016 you actually used in production?
Oh, used in production. I'm going to say it was dynamic data masking at the time, where it kind of just hid visuals of hiding data when it's really not hidden. So people couldn't see other people's salaries, but didn't realize it wasn't encrypted. We did that. And
very nice. It's a cool, it's not really a security feature, but it's a cool feature. Denny, next question for you. In hindsight, was 2016 a catch-up release or a leap ahead release? And defend your answer.
No, it was definitely a leap ahead release. There was a lot of new features being added to it that took a long time for Microsoft to finish. I know Query Store they started working on back in the SQL 2012 days, and that finally got ready enough for release in 2016 that they could actually put it in the product. And a lot of the other features as well were brand new for 2016, including some of the stuff that they launched and fell apart, and we all know which one I'm talking about. FreshDB was awesome all during the preview cycle, and then died at GA because of stupid marketing decisions.
Yeah. John, what was the state of SQL Server's reputation in 2015, and how did the 2016 release change that?
In 2015?
Yeah, prior to the 2016 version. Yeah.
Well, 2014 they changed the cardinality estimator, which was caused a lot of problems, and they fixed a lot of things when they came out with 2016. When I started looking at 2016, I was working at a farm credit, and we were looking at it for availability groups and temporal tables.
Mm-hmm.
I think that skipping over 2014 to 2016 fixed a lot of things, especially around that cardinality estimator change that they made. As well as they also deprecated, they didn't deprecate it, but they made a lot of things defaulted in 2016, which makes our life easier as DBAs, right?
For sure. Yeah, one of the things that gets overlooked a lot because it's not really listed as a new feature when going back and doing these retrospectives is they completely rewrote availability groups. The whole underlying code changed and became a lot better. There were a lot of flaws early in the product. So for our next topic, we're going to talk about what was excellent. And I know I'm going to go with Monica first because I know exactly what she's going to answer. And probably everybody would answer. But
a couple things, actually. First, I want to note they started to default the TempDB setup to multiple files. That is accurate. When they walked through the GUI. But the big thing was Query Store. Life-changing. Totally changed the way we performance tune and everything going forward. Laid the foundation. So they screwed it up.
So Monica, you've made the case that Query Store is your favorite feature, yes. and I don't disagree, and it's not even close. Make the case to someone who's still on 2016, 2017, or 2019, or one of the 2020 versions, and hasn't turned on Query Store.
They should turn it on. It's just basic. I even do a session on it. It's called Turn It On. Reason people didn't turn it on right away is because what I just alluded to, when they had the default setting in there, it had to capture mode all, which brought a bunch of systems down right out the gate. And that was the default setting. So now they changed it so it does multiple runs before it captures the workload. So that one fear that brought everybody's system down in the very beginning still sticks in some people's heads, but now there's no reason not to turn it on. They changed the capture mode default. So
I could swear the capture mode was auto at least it was pre-GA. I don't know if
so they made the mistake of it all, and then they actually went with SP1, switched it to auto. You'll still find some old databases now if it was created during that time where it's still set to all. I still find them now, but that was the big thing. Now there's no reason to turn it on. It's on by default in 2025 now. So turn it on.
So Denny, question for you. Is there a feature that was in 2016 and not StretchDB that you think was good, but you now think is overrated?
Oh.
Probably, but I don't know what it would be off the top.
What about Always Encrypted?
Is that really overrated, though?
Thinking back to what we were pitched in 2016 and what it could have been, they pitched us a lot, and that wasn't actually known. Windows, I don't want my notifications to randomly pop up on my screen. Thank you. It was pitched to be really cool, and it never really got there. Like, it could do some great stuff, but it wasn't as good as they were originally saying it was going to be.
Yeah, I think, and John, to your point, like the feature itself isn't overrated. It's the fact that they made it sound like the implementation was going to be completely trivial, and it's not. Yeah. Like in a lot of cases, you still have to make more app changes than.
I totally agree with that.
So, John, I talked to Connor for this column the other day, and he said that Query Store changed how Microsoft operates SQL database. Automatically tuning database, being able to automatically tune databases at scale and presumably write queries across thousands of databases to see what it's doing. Does that change how you think about it as an on-prem feature? I'm guessing you didn't need that prompting, but I thought that was an interesting bit of feedback from Connor.
I don't think it changes my opinion on it for an on-premise deployment. I still think I agree with Monica. I think you should enable Query Store where it makes sense. Most likely everywhere. There's probably some edge cases where Query Store will fall over. But 95% of the workloads would benefit from Query Store. Back when 2016 was released, a lot of people still used monitoring tools like SentryOne. We all loved SentryOne. That was a great product. But Query Store certainly advanced using native tools to monitor your workloads and to be able to adjust. Like one of my favorite features about Query Store is plan forcing. It's a simple and quick way to fix problems.
Yeah, Monica, it was 2019 when you could change you could customize the settings to support if you had a highly dynamic workload, you could change the max number of plan captures.
Yeah.
But the default sucks, right? Didn't we talk about this last week?
That's correct. There's actually some more customization you can do now since 2022, where they even let you change the thresholds of what to capture, how long in between the capture, and all of that. Many of the times, you don't need to go that far for a normal workload. You don't even have to go into that. The auto is going to work well for you. But for those edge cases, because Query Store has been around now 10 years, they've really gone and refined it. So everybody should be able to use it with minimal overhead. in their
It's
system.
probably technically 11 because like it was in SQL DB in 15 for sure.
Great. Let me feel
y-
older. Appreciate that.
yeah, I pulled a white paper I wrote about security features that's from like July of 2015 today. So yeah, I understand your feelings.
Yeah.
I'm going to start with John this time because I want to talk about what lasted. And this is a distinction from features that are excellent. Some features were great at launch and faded, or maybe great during pre-release and faded, which we'll talk about later when we talk about what failed. But now I want to look at things that are compounding. And somebody please don't just say query store because I know that's the right answer, but like there are some other ones that are kind of interesting. So I'm going to ask John which 2016 feature has aged the best, not which was best at launch, but what has compounded most over 10 years.
I would probably age the best. I think temporal tables aged fairly well.
Mm-hmm.
That was actually one of the features that really intrigued me about 2016 was because at the time we were looking at reporting solutions and being able to capture data changes without using triggers or CDC. So temporal tables was pretty high on my list. I think column store aged really, really well. They made vast improvements on column store throughout the years, but 2016 was kind of the introduction to column store around that time period, if I remember right. So I think column store definitely aged really well, for sure.
So Monica, always encrypted is still probably under adopted. Is it a tooling problem? Is it a culture problem? Is it a wrong answer to the right problem issue? Like, why do you think it's still challenging?
Because there's still so many roadblocks to it. The list of what were the stop gaps that prevented, you get started and all of a sudden you hit a roadblock. Damn, got to undo it. Then you start it again and it's damn, you got to undo it. I think that list has gotten smaller, but those of us that set those things up in the beginning, we know what the struggle was. It was supposed to be so simple and it really wasn't. We hit every single thing. So I think the adoption of it from those that have been around since it started, we just kind of put it to the wayside.
So we had this customer, I remember this, and it was like they were trying to hide somebody's salary from like one other person.
Yep.
And it wasn't the limitation that they wanted to be able to do math on the encrypted values in the database and not .NET or something. And you can do that now if you're using secure enclaves, but you do have to be doing that.
Right. That's the whole other big piece, the secure enclaves. What was that? That was specific hardware related and stuff like that needed to be done that nobody understood. Well, not everybody understood. It just complicated everything. Good idea. Still is, but complicated.
So Denny, one other one. PolyBase was sold as the bridge to Hadoop, which was also another feature in 2016. Yep. I think PolyBase launched on the dying days of Hadoop itself. And Hadoop didn't really survive the decade, but PolyBase did. What do you think about that today? I mean, I feel like it's mostly still used to talk to storage, but that's like now mostly natively built into the engine, I think.
Yeah, I think it's native to the engine now. PolyBase is weird. Like they've been trying to figure out where it actually fits the best, and I don't know if there's a great place for it in the whole scheme of SQL Server that they've kind of figured out yet. They've tried to use it for a couple of things. I think it's used partially for external tables. It might not be anymore. They've tried to use it for a couple of other things, like you said, the feed over to Hadoop. They were trying to use it for that for a while, but Hadoop basically died. So it was a great idea. It might have been a version of SQL Server too late to really get great adoption. I think it would have been better adopted in 2014, and then things like Hadoop might have even lasted longer.
I think it was like a little bit of a challenge. I remember it was a configuration challenge. There was some weirdness because you had to get Java installed.
Yeah.
And overall, it just kind of, it worked. Like but there was like the scale out architecture that I never saw anyone do, even though I had a bunch of customers using PolyBase. And also, they really did meld most of that into the product because I think now you can natively talk to Blob storage, you can natively talk to Parquet files, and you can talk to HDFS. You don't need PolyBase to do that for you. So if you're installing 25 and you had Hadoop, or excuse me, you had PolyBase, you might not even need to run PolyBase.
Yeah.
And it was, I think in 2016, I believe it was Enterprise Edition only. I think that later changed.
I think it was because there was a lot of things that were still Enterprise Edition only until Service Pack 2 kicked in.
Okay. let's talk about what failed. We all know what one feature is. But that's my second question. So I'm going to ask John, what was the single biggest miss in SQL Server 2016 that didn't involve archiving data to an Azure SQL database? A feature that shipped but shouldn't have, or shipped but never delivered?
So yeah, I was not going to mention the product that was going to archive data into an Azure SQL database. I was actually going to say SSRS.
Oh, interesting.
Because you and I were actually talking about that earlier today, and I was thinking about our conversation that I remember looking, working from the organization, the farm credit that I was at, we used SSRS heavily, right? And they, in that time period, in that era, they were talking about SSRS as a service, and that revamp never came to fruition.
Mm-hmm.
And then Power BI showed up, and it was pretty much. That was it. That was it for SSRS. And today it's pretty much deprecated.
Yeah. Microsoft acquired a company called DataZen to build mobile reporting into SSRS in 2016. And they actually did this is something I remember. I'd probably have to bring it up to Kerry because he read that part of the training. But I remember it being pretty cool. And we had to figure out how to demo it on a phone. But it worked. It was nice. One other weird thing that may give some insight into how all that went down. When we were writing the training, Scott Klein called me all apologetically one afternoon, and he's like, "I have to kill your Power BI module," because we had a Power BI module, and we also had an SSRS module. It's two separate modules, and I'm like, "I don't care. You paid me for it." But there was some political thing that probably still goes on to this day, as I think. I'm going to give Denny the stretch database question because he and I were there for all of it, and I think I've heard all of the inside stories. Was it a bad idea, or was it a good idea executed poorly?
It was a great idea that marketing screwed up royally.
To be fair, I think it was business planning.
Probably a combination of the two, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think the parts of it that control that were technically owned by marketing. Because at least those are the people that were able to tell us the why.
And you want to explain what happened? It was originally you could go to any SKU of SQL database, right?
Yeah. So back in the pre-GA world of SQL Server 2016, when you set up StretchDB, it would go, like Joey said, to basically any version of SQL DB. So I don't think you can go to basic, but you go to S2 or something and above.
Yeah.
And you could throw basically as much or as little added as you wanted to. So the idea was basically you have this super cheap way of storing, at the time, up to a terabyte or two, because SQL DB didn't go super big at the time.
If only there was a scalable SQL DB that scaled to hyper.
That didn't cost very much.
Nice plug.
Yeah. So you could go to S2 or above. And you could throw a couple of terabytes in there, and it was $20 or $30 a month. It was super cheap and relatively easy. And the idea being that this would be where the data that you basically never needed to access would go. And then if you did need to access it, it would be slow, but your app wouldn't need to really make any changes. And if new data needed to be archived from the database, it could be, and the table name would effectively be the same. And just the engine would magically call out to Azure to go get the data that you needed. And then GA hit, and there was one slight change in the target destination. It was no longer SQL DB. It was now Azure SQL Data Warehouse. Great.
And the minimum cost was $1,500 a month.
Right, yeah. So your cost to get into it was stupid high. Granted, you can now store tens to hundreds of terabytes of data, but your cost to get into it was ridiculous. And I believe the maximum number of people they got in GA on Azure SQL Data Warehouse was 6.
Yes.
I thought it was 2. We might be breaking NDA, but it's there's got to be a statute of limitations on that.
Yeah. You're thinking right. It was 2 because one of our clients was one of them.
Yeah.
I remember we saw that. We were joking about that.
Yeah. Okay, Monica, do you remember R going into the database engine in 2016?
I remember doing the install and unclicking that to make sure it did not install.
So I take it.
No,
I take it you never had a client that did that.
no, of course not. So
Yeah.
it's not all right. No, yeah, I remember when it was part of it, it was confusing on what they wanted to do with it, what the plans were. I'm not sure what kind of traction got from that, but it's not there anymore.
So we had a client. We had a client that they killed ML services. Yeah, I don't even remember what the current state of it. We had a client that killed ML services or used ML services, but we ran it on standard edition because we kind of built an architecture where you could scale out. But yeah, it was not a. It was one of those things where it was cool to have analytics close to the database engine, but do you really want to run R, which is open source and free, on a server that costs you $7,000 a CPU? And I think that was ultimately the problem there.
Yeah.
Yep. Before we wrap up, let's talk a little bit about upgrades. Upgrades used to be this ugly, terrible process. They've gotten so much better. And the fact that we don't have physical machines anymore, mostly, I know there are 2% of you who still use physical machines. Good luck buying RAM.
Or storage.
But let's talk about some real world advice. Denny, skip version upgrades, 2016 to 2025 in one jump, reckless or reasonable?
I'd say reckless. I'd say you probably want to do a couple of jumps. There's a lot of feature changes between the two, and it's probably going to be a little cleaner to go a couple of hops, even if you stay on that middle version for a day or two. I think you'd probably want to.
What do you mean compat mode? Compat mode, right? You'd still upgrade the binaries from 2016 to 2025, right?
The binaries, yeah, probably. Yeah, the database compatibility, you'd probably want to step because there's so many changes in the optimizer and stuff like that. Binaries, yeah, launch the ISO, click next a bunch of times, and you should be, for the most part, safe to upgrade.
And don't forget to upgrade Windows because you're probably, if you have a SQL 16, it's probably on some
a big jump like that. You're going to have to. That's going to be your deciding factor on how quickly you can upgrade. Is you got to get to a supported version that supports both to do it.
SQL doesn't block that on install though. You're not supported, but that's not something they block on. Just heads up. So check. There's a matrix. Google Windows SQL Server matrix. Monica, what 2016 or earlier era habits do people need to unlearn when they do upgrade, like trace flags, TempDB, etc.?
Oh, there is so much that's defaulted now that I look at people's systems and there's trace flags all over the place that are no longer needed and built in to the environment already. What is that? 17? I can't even think of it right now.
It's the two TempDB ones. In 2016, it was the two TempDB ones, and 2311, is that the stats one?
Yeah,
2371.
2371. Yeah.
That's where the sliding scale gets in for the stats.
Yeah.
There's still a lot of that to be unlearned that I see every day. But one thing, and I'm going to preface this. When you said hopping from 2016 to 2025, you know what makes it easy? Query store.
Yeah.
The compat mode changes. You know every layer of the compat mode and see the differences right off the bat to figure out what's going on. I'm going to tell you, that's been a lot of clients lately. Getting those old compat modes changed because they're still sitting out there. Query Store makes it so much easier to do that.
Yeah, I agree with you. And all the cool features that make it easier are built on top of Query Store. So Query Store hints, the cardinality estimate, the cardinality. 2022, I never remember the name of this feature, but there's some features that let you more fine grain tune the cardinality estimator in 2022 and 2025, and those are all built on top of the Query Store too.
Yep.
John, for workloads still on 2016 and 2026, what are the reasons you've heard from customers as to why they haven't moved, or do they still think 2016 was 3 years ago, like I do?
Great question. I actually have a client that's still running 2016 in production. They keep saying that they're going to do something about it, but I don't know what that decision is. I think part of it is having to purchase new licensing because they, if a client doesn't have software assurance and they didn't purchase that when they bought the licenses, then they have to repurchase the license. Which can get expensive, depending on how many cores they need and they need. So it gets expensive. And if the client is a nonprofit and their budgets are constrained, then they're going to stay on the old version.
Yeah, very much so. Pro tip, buy software assurance. Like, it's expensive. It's 23% of your spend, but it keeps you in upgrades. And also you get free high availability and disaster recovery licensing with it. So it's very valuable. And technically, if you're running in any kind of a VM, you can't really legally run a VM without software assurance. Big asterisk next to that, but you can't. All right, before we wrap up, I want to toast SQL Server 2016, and then we'll talk about 2025 in a second. First round robin, if SQL 2016 had a tombstone, what would it say? Monica, go.
Wow. Foundational changer. I don't know.
Game changer.
Laying the foundation.
Laying the foundation. I like that.
Laying the foundation of the next SQL Server evolution.
Yeah, John, same question.
In my head, I have Here Lies 2016, iconic in its infancy and propelling us forward, right? Because Query Store, Column Store, that really set the foundation for new technologies that Microsoft has delivered.
Yeah,
something along those lines.
We need an editor. Denny.
Something to the effect of Here Lies SQL Server 2016. This is what brought you all the features that you like today in the new versions of SQL.
That's a good one.
Denny, was 2016 the last version with a box?
I believe so, because it's the version I have signed up here somewhere by the engineering team. Because they made specific boxes for the MVPs at the time.
Yeah.
And they gave them out at Summit, and I believe that was the last one that had an actual box for a box product.
So 10 years from now, if we're all still working, that could be like hopefully we'll be working. Hopefully we're not still working, but in a good way. If we're recording the same thing for SQL 25, is there which of its features will have aged the way Query Store has?
Ugh.
Monica, start of that. And you're the only one who's allowed to say Query Store.
Query Store is going to give us, even more intelligent query processing that came from it. We're the evolution of all of the magic that's going. But I think it'll all start to have new names. It's going to be something different. Something with agent.
Denny?
Got something that's going to survive well. One of the feedback features, but that's all built on Query Store.
Mm-hmm. John?
I'm going to say one that's specific to 25, which is optimized locking.
Yeah,
that also, and I'm going to piggyback that with accelerated database recovery. It came out in 2019, but you have to have that for optimized locking. Those two features combined, I think, are going to age really, really well.
I'm going to chime in, and I think vector search is probably going to be in the product forever. And if it actually gets finished, change event streaming.
Ooh, that's good call too.
That has potential.
But it could also be StretchDB.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. And this has been wonderful. I hope you enjoyed this. And join us later. We'll do some more videos. Like and subscribe.
Hey.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. Hang on. Where's my goddamn mouse? Okay. They're recording stuff.